All right, folks, good evening. On behalf of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, I'd like to welcome you all to the Wanda Coleman Theater and to the LA book launch of A Face Out of Clay by Brent Ameneyro. Please give it up. My name is Jimmy Vega. I am the Associate Director of Beyond Baroque. I'd like to start by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent disposition of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. For those who don't know, Beyond Baroque is Los Angeles' oldest literary arts center, located here in Venice, California. Founded in 1968 by George Drury Smith, first as an experimental literary magazine before reimagining itself and becoming the literary home we know it as today. We are based out of the original Venice City Hall and help support writers and help cultivate new writing through our extensive program of writing workshops and performances. We offer a number of workshops online via Zoom, such as our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop facilitated by Raquel Baker, and our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop currently facilitated by Ruja Mohasasi. We also have some emeritus facilitators in the house, so thank you for facilitating that workshop if you ever have. Similarly, we offer several paid in-person and online workshops throughout the year. Tomorrow will feature Lighten Up, Humor and Wit in Poetry, a workshop with Louis Vette Resto. Louis Vette is in the house tonight, yes. So if you're interested in the workshop, there's still tickets available. Come see us in the bookstore for more. And later in August, we have some workshops facilitated by Lori Badikian and Holiday Mason. Lori's also in the house, so please do inquire about her workshop as well. And aside from our workshops, we offer several readings throughout the year. Next week, we'll host the LA book launch of Mad Cap by James Henry Zukin. Additionally, we'll host Larry Beckett and his latest Song to the Siren, which will include interpretations of the work alongside a conversation with music historian Pat Thomas. So please do come back and check all of that out. For more, you can find us on our socials at BBLitArts and at beyondbaroque.org. Lastly, we offer several memberships to Beyond Baroque, starting at $60 for an individual membership. You notice that we charge nothing for tonight's event. And it's because of our generous support from our donors and members. Purchasing a membership allows us to offer these free online and in-person events. As many of you know, it also gives you a discount for some of our workshops. So I do want to take the time to thank all of our past and current members. They allow us to continue the work we're doing in cultivating a literary space here in Los Angeles and beyond. Like I said, these funds give us the opportunity to further cultivate the artistic possibility of language for generations of poets and artists to come. So thank you for your generosity. And if you're not a member, please do see us in the bookstore and inquire about becoming a member. Big thank you to all of our readers tonight. We're excited to launch Brent's new work out into the world. And before we begin, I did want to say a big thank you and shout out to all of our staff for making this happen. Quentin Ring, notably Yvonne Salinas, who did a lot of work to make all of tonight happen. Eric Alberg in the booth, Genesis Perez, Nick Foreman, and Tyler Newfield in the bookstore. Thank you for all that you do. Yes, please. Now, without further ado, we're going to get into the reading. First up, we have Nick Martino, a poet and teacher from Milwaukee. His work is published or forthcoming from BestNet Poets, Narrative, The Southern Review, and Ninth Letter, among others. He is an alumnus of Community of Writers and Sewanee Writers Conference. He holds an MFA from the University of California, Irvine, and was the winner of the program's 2022 Excellence in Poetry Prize. He lives in LA. Welcome, Nick Martino.
All right, wonderful. Can everyone hear me? Something like this? I'm going to lean down in a minute too. All right, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Beyond Baroque. Thank you, Jimmy, for that great introduction. Thank you, Brent, for inviting me to be here. It is a true privilege and joy to get to read with you tonight to celebrate A Face Out of Clay. Give it up for A Face Out of Clay for Brent. Woo! Make sure you run to the bookstore after this, buy a copy, buy 2, buy 3. It's a really brilliant collection. I've been sitting with it for a couple of weeks, and I return again and again to so much of the beautiful work in here. I'm going to start by reading a poem, one of my favorites. I'll talk a little bit about how Brent and I got to know one another, and I'll read a poem or two. This is Measuring Memory from A Face Out of Clay. Measuring memory. To find the volume, determine the length of tongues. Or was it the decibels of oil popping in the kitchen? I think it's a gas, or a vapor, or the dust swept up from the front of a corner store. From sidewalk to street blown back, when the first car passes, only some of it lands. What's left is inhaled by children with chilaquiles, still wet on their lips. I love that poem. I think it's indicative of a lot of the work in this book, which is so tremendous. It's this quiet confidence, this intersection of memory and the present, and this attention to these small, bright, luminous images that are so beautifully, thoughtfully evoked here. I really am tremendously privileged to be able to speak in favor of this book tonight. Please make sure you get a copy, and I'm excited to hear more tonight from Brent. I'm excited to read some poems tonight that Brent actually published. He's also the editor of the Los Angeles Review, a poetry editor there. Brent and I got to know one another. It was a really cool relationship wherein I submitted some poems and he accepted them for publication. And in poetry, a lot of times that is kind of where the relationship might end, outside of a couple of copy edits or the like. But I had sent these poems. I'll show you two tonight. They're what I call Polaroid poems. They're meant to evoke an actual Polaroid photograph, wherein the text begins partially erased and then moves towards fullness. And the idea is you're watching a Polaroid develop. These are Polaroids that are actually kind of in my own collection. They're Polaroids of my family, speaking to a kind of event in our past. And I sent these poems to Brent, and he and Lawrence kindly accepted them for publication. And I was playing with kind of animating them, actually, at the time to kind of evoke that developing Polaroid on the screen. And as a lark, I sent, this note to Brent, like, hey, I was just thinking about this. I was like, this is never going to work. But Brent came back and he said, oh my God, this is incredible. This is kismet, because Brent himself is an incredible poet, but he also, you make video poetry as well. You brought your poetry to a video format, which I'd really never seen other poets do, maybe here and there a little bit, but it was just a perfect serendipitous moment. And he actually guided me through animating these poems into GIFs, and they're published on the Los Angeles Review website. I'm gonna read two tonight with the help of Eric here. I'm not gonna read them in GIF format because I'm not that fast, but you're gonna actually be able to follow along with me. The idea here is the way in which we watch this Polaroid develop is kind of akin to the way in which our understanding of a particular family history might develop as well. All right, so let's see, plug it in. All right, Polaroid prison visit, June 7th, 1989. 1. My mother turning to the prison. He lied. I can't stop staring at his face, dark cement, the silhouette behind the blood in her hand, humming his touch, her hands grasping in his, a gesture of fear. 2. My mother turning to the camera. She's glowing, and my father's in prison. Heavy mascara carefully applied. I can't stop staring at. I imagine her hardened to stone. This face, rain-dark cement. The prison yard silhouette. The figure behind the blood in my father's hand. A hummingbird. His touch, a judgment of her distance. And yet I can't ignore her hands grasping in his, a gesture of love or fear. 3. That's working. My mother turning to the camera, her hair a starving argument of red. I'm surprised that she's smiling, rosy, almost glowing. It's the afternoon and my father's in prison. Heavy mascara carefully applied, a hospital bright blouse, her tanned hand sleeping on his knee. I can't stop staring at her white teeth. Behind them, I imagine her grief is a cherry pit, hardened to stone. Imagining her frame of mind, do I deceive myself? What do I know? Only this realm of surfaces. The vomit-colored lawn, the rain-dark cement. In the furthest corner of the prison yard, a silhouette watching the camera. Watching, too, I feel as figment as the figure behind them, and as close as the blood in my father's hand to the shoulder it hovers over like a hummingbird. My mother's body leaning into his touch. I'm leaning, too, conjugating witness into a judgment of my father's distance. And yet, I can't ignore the other hand's testimony. Grasping her finger in his fist, a gesture of fear indistinguishable from love, or love from fear. Thank you. I'll read one more for you tonight and then get to the next reader. All right. Polaroid prison visit, September 7th, 1989. Smoke again in our house, ember in the lamb's wool hearth, pine silhouette, mother and us trapped inside her weeping. Black the forest, pro-dark his eyes, a dove, my mother's right hand clenching. Baby on the horizon, in the air the burning trace of what's lost, the promise of touch. 2. 3 smoke-colored hills against a dimming hour, hazy as greenhouse glass. My father, my mother, and her mother together. My mother's covered arms spell autumn. September in the way the clouds unspool as lamb's wool. Dusk escaping into the earth, the oaks naked and sleeping like prisoners, the silhouette of a barn in the distance. My grandmother's beautiful hair, gray and genius, virtually lilac, is wind with light trapped inside it. My father's hair is weeping black dye into the forest's thinning crown, dark half moons beneath his eyes, left hand woven around my mother's waist, right hand clenching something hidden in his fingers. Baby blue pickup on the horizon, idling, fragile ribbon of exhaust in the air, the smell of burning leaves. Here, I trace the outline of what's lost. My grandmother's life, the promise of the future, and the barn, taken by a fire that burned down half the city but left the prison untouched. Thank you.
Nick Martino, folks, let's give it up one more time. Thanks, Nick. Up next, we have Jose Hernandez Diaz, 2017 NEA Poetry Fellow. He is the author of The Fire Eater, Bad Mexican, Bad American, The Parachutist, and Portrait of the Artist as a Brown Man. He teaches at UC Riverside, online at Hugo House, Lighthouse Writers Workshops, and at the Writer Center. Please welcome Jose Hernandez Diaz.
Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. It's great to be here. This is one of my favorite spots to read. I also used to do the Wednesday night poetry workshop, so it's great to be back here. Thank you to Brent. Congratulations on the collection. It's an excellent book, sharp, innovative. I love the forms and the understated quality and the cultural references, and I think it's a future award winner. So congratulations. It's great to read here with Francisco. I remember reading Francisco when I was in graduate school, and just a legend in the literary Latino community. And to read here with Nick and Brent, rising stars, it's just such a pleasure and an honor. And thank you, Jimmy, and the staff as well. I'm going to start off with a poem I wrote a couple of days ago, responding to the clown show called the RNC, the Republican National Convention. It's called Election Song. Every election year, I have to sit and watch white Americans, Republicans complain, scapegoat immigrants, brown people, open borders as the reason for their suffering. They say, immigrants shot me on my way to church. Immigrants stole my cup of sugar. Immigrants killed my only child 5 times. Immigrants, immigrants, immigrants. They say, deport them now, deport them yesterday, deport them forever. We need a white land, white, 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 white. We need a white language, white flag, white song. So next I'm going to read from my collection, Bad Mexican, Bad American. And the first poem I'm going to read is called The Bocha with the Adelita Tattoo. I fell in love with the Bocha with the Adelita Tattoo. She's so cultured and idiosyncratic. Her hair is up in a bun. She wears heels with blue jeans, red lipstick. Her tattoo is Dia de los Muertos and Mexican Revolutionary themed. Her eyes are bocha, light brown, like honey. I don't know if she speaks Spanish. If she does, it's probably broken, like mine. The bocha with an Adelita tattoo and I go out on a date to a local taco shop. We talk about music, art, poetry. We have a few cocktails and eat tacos. At the end of the night, I ask her about her tattoo. She says she got it because it represents her Mexican heritage and because Las Adelitas were badass women. I tell her it's lovely and lean in for a kiss. This next one was published in the Southern Review, and it's called Quetzalcoatl in the City. I saw Quetzalcoatl at Panda Express in the city. I assumed he would strictly visit Mexican joints, but I'm sure he just wants variety like anyone else. Quetzalcoatl ordered the impossible orange chicken bowl. I had no idea he's a vegetarian. Quetzalcoatl had on an elaborate, colorful headdress and carried a shield and spear. I felt senselessly underdressed. I was in my flip-flops and a surfing shirt. I thought about going up and saying hello, but honestly, he was intimidating, Aztec god that he is. After Quetzalcoatl received his order, he tipped the workers, waved goodbye, and flew out of the door. I ended up ordering the regular orange chicken with brown rice and vegetables. I ate there and then drove home at sunset. This next one is called Wolverine on Hollywood Boulevard. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day because I want to get ahead in life. I take a shower, 15 minutes. I have breakfast and a coffee. I put on my Wolverine mask and go to Hollywood Boulevard. By the time I get to the tourist section, I am already in character, both physically and psychologically. I charge $50 per photo to tourists. Everyone loves Wolverine. Spider-Man is a wuss. Kind of a wacko, if you ask me. I think he's hooked on drugs, if I'm being real. Anyway, I wish him the best. No, I don't perform on the street. I don't dance. I just walk around like a badass. People gravitate toward me. I make a decent, honest living. At the end of the night, around 10 p.m., I drive on the cold freeway, still in uniform, still alive. This last one I'm going to read is called The Skeleton in the Pyramid. A skeleton with a sombrero sat on top of an Aztec pyramid. The sun was setting. He played a song on his old guitar. It was called The Jaguar Moon. At the end of the song, he took a bow for the small crowd that had gathered. The tourists clapped and tipped the skeleton plenty of pesos. The skeleton climbed down from the pyramid and bought a paleta de coco. It was his favorite flavor since childhood. The moon rose like a child's rainbow kite. Eventually, the skeleton finished the paleta and disappeared into the crowd of restless tourists. Thank you.
Jose Hernandez Diaz, folks, give it up, make some noise. It's always great having you here with us, Jose. This next poet is paying us a little visit to Califas, and we're excited to have him. Francisco Aragón is the son of Nicaraguan immigrants. His books include After Ruben, Glow Over Sweat, and Puerta de Sol. He is also the editor of Wind Shifts, New Latino Poetry. His work has appeared in over 20 anthologies, including the forthcoming Library of America anthology, Latino Poetry. A native of San Francisco, California, he is on the faculty of the University of Notre Dame's Institute for Latino Studies, where he directs Letras Latinas. He has read his work widely, including at universities, bookstores, art galleries, and the Dodge Poetry Festival. He currently divides his time between South Bend, Indiana, and Melilani, Hawaii. For more information, visit franciscoaragon.net. It is our pleasure to welcome Francisco Aragón.
Thank you all for coming to celebrate a beautiful book, A Face Out of Clay. I've known Brent now for about maybe 3 years. He was our Poetry Coalition Fellow for Letras Latinas in 2022 and 2023, and he continues to work with us as a Letras Latinas associate. A former mentor of mine of many, many years ago once articulated the following idea, which I still subscribe to, and that is that a poem is not a fully realized work of art until it's uttered aloud by someone other than the author. And it's in that spirit that I want to read 2 pieces from Brett's book and 2 companion pieces from my book that I think have a synergy with Brett's poems, with these 2 poems. So the first one is titled Dad Telling Stories. I changed my name, played marbles in la calle de sangre, jumped off a waterfall without knowing how I'd get back up. My mustache is a mourning dove. I felt a gun barrel against my scalp in a grocery store. I gave them the wallet from my pocket and the poinsettia from my rib cage. I was T-boned by a drunk driver. There are no ghosts in my dreams. My mustache is a feathered snake. Count my crow's feet as I tell you this. I am a paper boat floating down a river. The poem of mine that I'm going to read has a kinship with Brent's poem in that the speaker of this poem is also in the voice of the author's father. My piece is titled Academia Escolar, which could roughly be translated as elementary school. And it's the subtitle of the poem, or the little pseudo-epigraph, is Managua, the 40s. Her look could undo, not the most soothing thing I could say. The day they said we'd be let out early, a bubbly mood spread among us as we planned the afternoon impromptu stickball, that dusty lot. The academy's front gate clicked shut behind us when someone saw her behind a car, arms folded across her chest. I had no reason to, but that unexpected sight made me flinch, an 8-year-old child, frightened. Think about it, a boy afraid of his mother. And the second poem of Brent's that I want to read has an epigraph by Pablo Neruda, which reads, I went from market to market for years because Mexico is in its markets. And Brent's bilingual title is A Walk en Mercado de la Merced. And I chose this, the poem I chose to read along with this one. There's a certain kinship with the poem, not so much in the content, but in I think the rhetorical strategies. So here's Brent's. Inhale, fried pigskin, peppers, tortillas, dirt, car tires, cigarette smoke, dry wood, violin strings, fresh paint, concrete dust. Exhale. When did my hands get so many wrinkles? Why is the mountain so violent toward the clouds? How did that dog get on top of that building? What does my cock look like to the man in the urinal next to me? Reflection in a window. I am. At least until I turn away. And my piece, which is sort of in kinship with Brent's, is divided into two sections, and mine is titled After Fragments of Juan Felipe Herrera. And the two subsections are titled Hands and Eyes. Hands. Small, brown, like your father's. Cradle the timepiece he gave you, your eyes looking down at it, your feet half in, half out. The Pacific, your shorts cutoffs, frayed, your t-shirt white, like the one he wears in the photograph, Marlon Brando in a streetcar named Desire. You half laugh a little, lips slightly parted. If only you could talk into the wee hours, that time you visited 20 years ago. Instead, you mumble to yourself, your legs fatigued, blemished. You hadn't noticed. Phantom days, phantom nights, and now pretending to run along this shoreline, you have arrived by chance, recreating him in this poem. Eyes. Here I am again, attempting to swim, my breaststroke reduced to rubble after decades of sifting. The years, I hadn't noticed how flabby my arms had become. Giggling in the moonlight, a distant memory. Summer nights we sneaked out down to that corner of the beach no one spoke of openly. Side by side, we would laugh and lick, laugh and lick, giving new meaning to a phrase, slip of the tongue. And no buttons to undo, no shirts to strain to see through the rags of our clothes in a heap back at the cabin. Instead, the wet sand films our arms, our hands, our legs as we cross easily the sea of our gaze. Thank you.
One more time for Francisco Aragón. All right. Lastly, but certainly not least, we have Brent Ameneyro, the author of the collection A Face Out of Clay and the chapbook Puebla. His e-lit has been selected for the 2022 Education and Electronic Literature Conference and Art Festival in Italy, as well as for film festivals in Denmark, Barcelona, Canada, and Los Angeles. He was the 2022-2023 Letras Latinas Poetry Coalition Fellow at the University of Notre Dame. He currently serves as an associate at Letras Latinas and is the poetry editor at the Los Angeles Review. Please make some noise for Brent Ameneyro.
My optometrist told me I should wear these, so I'm gonna. This has been really, really special. I didn't intentionally sit right there in front of everyone reading, so that turned out to be really nice. My first time coming to Beyond Baroque was a few years ago for a poetry film festival, and my brother and I had made a short film that was based on a road trip that we took across the country, and that film was based off of this poem that I'm about to read. So I thought I'd read it first because I'm very grateful for Beyond Baroque, Jimmy, Ivan, and the whole crew here. And I've obviously been back several times, and every time I come here, it just feels like the kind of place that is doing all the right things, right? Like cultivating the right energy, bringing the right people together. I really admire the work that you guys do here. So this poem is called Frantic Ghosts. We drove into the velvet desert sky, asleep with our eyes open. The shadowed sagebrush appeared in our headlights like fleeting childhood memories. The glowing road lifted past the headlights into our eyes as each rectangular white line was a page turning in our minds. Clouds curled over the mountains as a young girl warned us of floods on the Texas highway. The little crosses with flowers on the side of the road stopped popping up, replaced by machines methodically drawing the black blood of the earth out. Pockets of fog and rain introduced the dark. A purple cloud flashed above an eternal flame. Everywhere we looked was a new display of paranormal light. The longer we drove under the starless sky, as hundreds of miles of not yet tumbling tumbleweeds turned into city lights, the more we forgot about the mundane daylight, the monotonous routines of everyone in the disappearing cities. One day, this will all return to desert, and all the frantic ghosts vibrating in the oleander, turning branches into bones and leaves into flesh, might finally find peace. Kind of selfishly, I worked with Yvonne to curate a lineup of poets that I really admire. And so this has just been a treat. I almost feel embarrassed reading after all of these amazing poets. Nick, when I first read his work at Los Angeles Review and working with him on those gift poems, I just knew, I was like, wow, I can't wait for his work to come out. He has a book coming out in 2 years, so we're all going to have to keep an eye out for that. I've been a fan of Jose's work for quite some time. I think our first communication, I messaged him on Twitter asking for a signed copy of his chapbook when he was still promoting that. And I just remember reading his prose poems and thinking, wow, I don't know that I've ever seen prose poems do this. So it's so I get to be a fan, it's pretty cool to be able to put together an event like this and just be a fan of everyone that's here. And then of course Francisco, working with Francisco at Letras Latinas. Francisco has been a mentor to me, not just in his work and introducing me to poets and their work and our lineage in Latinx poetics, but in community and in how to care for others and uplift others. And I think Francisco's work is a legacy of uplifting others. And I think working with Francisco is kind of giving me that sense of what I would like to do with my poetry journey, which is to do something similar in that same vein, which is to help uplift others and to cultivate community in that same way. So I'm rambling a little bit. I'm going to read another poem now, but I just wanted to say, it's just a really special night, and I appreciate all of you being here. So thank you. There's a lot of movement in my book. As you could tell, the last poem was about a road trip. There's some sense of movement kind of all over the place. So this poem is kind of anti-movement poem in a way. So it's also about movement, but in a different way. It's called All Good Stories Require a Journey. I need to get out of this chair. There is no sudden, unexpected joy that could happen. There is, at best, a dull pleasure in everything I do here. My feet are cold. My back is sore. The dog is staring at the wall. The longer I sit here, the harder it is to do anything else. I want to open the blinds, peek out at the wet pavement, imagine how it might smell. You wait patiently for me to stand, to walk, to do anything. But this chair and this calm are all we have. Stay with me a while longer. Here, where the line turns to a dot, where you and I have this potential pleasure. We don't need the tediousness of adventure. We aren't interested in the crassness of thrill. Still, like a lake in the early morning, gentle breathing. Stay. A lot of the poems in here, I guess you could say that the collection started with me writing toward memory, and specifically a collection of memories from the years that my family lived in Puebla, Mexico. And so this next poem is about a trip that my wife Alita and I took to go back to Puebla as an adult, because I had never gone back since childhood. And she was like, let's go, we have to go. You have to experience it again and see it now from fresh eyes. So this is called The Return. I like the way the paint peels off the ceiling at Semitas Las Poblanitas. Full, satisfying sheets drooping down. And the way the guitarist laments with his frail voice as he walks behind us while we shop for shirts with blue skulls and the city's name to prove we were, in fact, here. I can never figure out what that lady's yelling. Something about nieve and limon, or what the kids are imagining as they run with a wooden cross in their hands, like a toy airplane. No, gracias. No quiero cacahuates. No quiero chapulines o chocolate. I don't mind tripping on the uneven stone sidewalk. It helps me see. This poem is written in a form that I invented for this, that ended up in this collection. It also is an ekphrastic poem after a Frida Kahlo painting called The Two Fridas. Tectonics. It's easy to talk the heart, but it's in a painting or in Espanol. Maybe it's easier to talk about the earth, tickled, país a país, connected to she, her own hand, crowded with agitated clouds, not about blood or easy to see it. It's better in color, sangre, corazón, the body of her skin, by our movement, how her heart is her heart, holds the deep blue of the sky, runs all the way down. I think I saw that they have both of Francisco's books in the bookstore, and they also have Jose's book in the bookstore. So you should definitely go pick those books up before you leave tonight. Nick's book doesn't come out for a couple of years, but when it comes out, we'll buy that too. Thank you again for having me here. I have 2 more poems. This one's called, well, I guess I should tell you, it's a little context on this one. My parents moved to Florida for a little while, which was a terrible decision. And you know, we're close, and so when they moved, it was pretty hard because, you know, with the journey and everything, it was like a whole day. So I was like, I don't know how many more times I'm gonna see them in my life, you know? Like, it's felt like all of a sudden I could almost count on my hands how many times I would see them. And so it felt like this, I don't know, an emptiness kind of like I had to say goodbye in a much grander way than I ever had to say goodbye when I was leaving their house after visiting them in Florida. So this is called Leaving Before Christmas. They moved here now, so we changed that narrative real quick. There was a box holding what could be anything. Or there was a guitar. All I know is there was something holding emptiness. I felt everything. Mom laughed. Dad nodded off. I felt the folded paper with our scribbled family tree. These are your ancestors. There was a keyboard powered off. Every note imaginable played on Dad's knee. Emptiness grew in the room. On the coffee table, Mancala. We could have played, but it was getting late, and there was turbulence waiting. Kind of feels like I know it's my book, it has my name on the front, but it feels like our book, like my family's book, that's why I wanted to include a lot of my family in this book, because I've always seen poetry as something that I had to work really hard at to afford the time to be with poetry, not just to write it, but to just luxuriate in it, right? To lay under a tree and read just feels like a privilege. And so when I think about publishing this book, I think about my parents and all the hard work that they did to allow me that privilege to be able to even be here. And then I think of my ancestors, my grandmothers, and how hard they worked. And so to me, this feels like a culmination of that. This feels like we got here, So so this is my opening poem. It's called To My Ancestors. We've grown about 4 inches over the last 150 years. I thought you'd like to know. We've made these weapons that could end all life. Sorry. We carry candlelight in our pockets. Well, I can't explain it all, but there's a sense the end is near. My friend, may I call you that? The salt of the earth. I want to know the things you feared. I want to know if anything has changed. Have we always been such simple water creatures, grabbing anything in reach, scared the sun will suck us into the sky? My father doesn't like to talk about what's gone. That's why I hide you under my tongue. Thank you.
Give it up for Brent. Make some noise. Thank you again to Brent, Francisco, Jose, Nick. Thanks for being here, folks. Y'all had a lot of options on a Friday night, but we chose to be here in community, so thank you. We're here in poetry, and we're here to launch Brent's new work. So we do have copies of Brent's latest in the bookstore. We have other books, Francisco's, Jose's. Please stick around, enjoy the reception, and have a good night. Thanks, y'all.